But Lachlan, let's get to the main review of the week, a spoiler review for Poor Things from Yorgos Lanthimos.
Brought back to life by an unorthodox scientist, a young woman runs off with a lawyer on a whirlwind adventure across the continents. Free from the prejudices of her time, she grows steadfast in her purpose to stand for equality and liberation.
I like that logline. It's like really out
It's good.
there in the way that it gets the vibe of the movie correctly, because it kind of is written in the way that the characters also somewhat talk in this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, this film premiered early this year at the Venice Film Festival and won the main prize there, the Golden Lion. It's by Searchlight Pictures and comes in at a runtime of 141 minutes. That was really surprising to me, because this movie, I didn't feel like it was almost 2.5 hours long. It felt like a breeze, and it's been received very positively so far. A 4.3 on Letterboxd, an 8.5 on IMDb, and an 86 on Metacritic. That is with the festival premieres that it has had so far, and a limited run. It is now, as we record this on the day, expanding wide into theaters, so that rating might come down, because I can already feel a bunch of conservatives just like hating on it. So, oh, there's sex, there's nudity in this, so we hate this. Don't do this. So that's what I'm expecting, but it's still one of the frontrunners for a lot of the Oscars, maybe even the one for Best Movie of the Year. I'd certainly wouldn't be against that choice. And it was made for a budget of 35 million, and the gross we kind of don't know yet, because it's about to expand wide and has yet to release in international markets. It's out for you. Lachlan, you caught it at a preview screening, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And yeah, it's out now in Australia, I think, and won't be until next year here in Switzerland, until the 18th of January. But I was lucky enough to get to see it at the premiere in Venice, which also means I haven't had the chance to rewatch it since then. So it's been a couple of months. I'll try and use my baby-sized brain to hopefully get the most of what I liked about this. But yeah, this is also a novel adaptation from a novel of the same name from Alasdair Gray, a Scottish writer that was published in 1992. Yeah, Lachlan, what do you think about Poor Things? Is it worth the hype? Is it worth the accolades and the awards that it's been getting? Or is it overhyped?
I believe it's worth the hype. I believe it's worth seeing. I think that every so often you come across a piece of media that you weren't expecting to take you on a journey, and you weren't expecting it to be as enthralling as it was. And I say this coming off of my high of Alan Wake 2, the video game. I did not have that on my radar. I wasn't looking out for it. I only played the first one a few months ago, and that's my game of the year. Similar to this, while I think there are elements to Alan Wake 2 that I don't enjoy, I can appreciate what it is. There are elements to Poor Things that I don't enjoy. And you said that it went by like a breeze. I actually feel like there are some scenes that are too long, and in fact, there are some scenes that are too short, and that's where its shortcomings are in some of its pacing elements. But almost everything else, its performances, its set design, cinematography, its sound, music, it's all fantastic. It's all perfect in a way. It's all bringing you into this universe. And at first, it's a bit hard to get into. It's a bit, uncomfortable. But I realized driving home, that's the situation. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you uncomfortable at the start so that you can then feel more comfortable, similar to Bella's character. And that made me go, all right, I just sat and enjoyed a piece of media that I wasn't expecting to be as good as it was. It took me on a journey, and it made me feel emotions that I didn't realize I was feeling until after the fact. So, hell yeah, this movie's worth seeing. Hell yeah, this movie's worth your time. And I'm so glad it is in this year, because I feel like we didn't get a lot of wacky, fun, weird movies as much as Poor Things is wacky and weird and fun, and that was super exciting.
I know you didn't connect with a bunch of the comedies that I've championed, that I said like that you were kind of perplexed by my ratings and me overrating it in your opinion. So was this more on your wavelength when it comes to humor? Would you say this is a comedy or more drama or something in between?
I laughed at moments. There was one moment that I can't remember which scene it was, but I remember I laughed audibly and no one else in the cinema laughed. And I was with Tanika at the time, and she was like, and yeah, there was just a part where I laughed, and like that was just funny to me. So there are moments where the film lands comedy, and there are moments where I didn't laugh, but I wouldn't say this is fully up my lane for what I prefer in a comedy. Because while it is a dark comedy, I found it more worthwhile for the actual physical aspect of what was on the screen. Like, I found the technicalities of this movie way more interesting than I actually found the narrative. That was probably one of my downsides, is that I don't enjoy the story as much as I enjoyed the world. I enjoyed the performances. I enjoyed the actual way that Yorgos Lanthimos like frames shots and uses the weird wide angle fisheye lens style shots like he did in The Favourite. Like there are just so many elements from his previous films that have kind of all incorporated into this one, and that was exciting to see, where I was like, oh, that's from this film that he did, and it's from this film that they did, and that was fun for me to really pick apart this film and go, this is where he got this element, this is where he got this element. And Poor Things is kind of like a magnum opus. I hope it's not for his career, because he's a super exciting filmmaker to follow, but it does feel like a high point for his filmography of the everything kind of coming together to being this wacky, wonderful world that's put together.
No, I completely agree. I think I have another film that I like more than this one of his filmography, because I'm a huge fan of The Lobster. And I think that one is like way smaller in what it's trying to go for. The premise is simpler, and here it is like, in some way it is a huge like character study, in addition to all of the other things that it is, just this fantastical world. But it is someone who's growing up in this world. That's essentially like, it's a coming of age story for this character who is dead and then reanimated, which by Willem Dafoe, Goodwin Baxter, who himself is someone who's been modified, right? And has like all of those weird looks that he has to himself. I forget if he's the like his character also has like a bunch of issues with his master, and I think this movie is somehow
his father
also able his father is also able to convey some of the shortcomings that he felt like with his dad, that he's still not able, like, even though he doesn't want to be like his dad, he wants to like make something better, make something different, be different. He still falls into the same kind of traps that are laid for you through your upbringing. If consciously unconsciously it ends up happening, like that's an aspect that you could dive into, and it's just a Willem Dafoe character that is mesmerizing in this. But Emma Stone, like, it goes without saying, she's had some incredible performances. This is by far her best one. I think it is, apart from Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall. I think this is, after that, I think it's the best performance of the year. It's really, really good what she does here.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, she has to go from basically baby mode with a small brain in her head, as she grows and learns, has to not retrace, but I guess also in parts, slight spoiler here, retrace her steps by also finding her own way. And the way that she does that in like segments, the way that they split it, because I listened to a bunch of the interviews that they've had, because they weren't able to shoot this obviously chronologically. She had to kind of track where she's at, so they segmented all of the parts of her different stages, so she could kind of just compartmentalize, that isn't a word, I said that incorrectly, but you know what I'm trying to say, to get that right. But then even in between those steps, in between those segments where like it should be around the same Like, you're not jumping to like the next stage of her evolution. There's like micro steps that she does at each point. There's so many nuances that she's able to put into this character. It's like, it's incredibly impressive beyond, I think, this year when it comes to performances, what she's able to do here. And you brought up the theater experience. I don't know how eruptive that's not, I think also another word. Coming up with words today. Your theater was with the comedy in here. I Flex got to see it at the Venice premiere, right? The first audience that got to see it, and it was a full theater. And apart from Hitman, an actual comedy by Richard Linklater, got picked up by Netflix, comes out next year. This was the most the theater was like alive and laughing at a movie at the entire festival in Venice. It was incredibly lively, and there was a ton of laughs to be had. Like, it was a great experience for that overall. It definitely elevated the film as well. And I'll hand it off to you again to talk about Mark Ruffalo. What did you think about his performance?
I think that it is one of the best supporting performances of the year. I think that, just quickly on Emma Stone, like, Emma Stone is up there for getting the award for Best Actress, going up against some of the big hitters from this year. I think that you're probably going to see, like, Barbie's a big hit, so you're going to see Margot Robbie on there. You're going to see Sandra Hüller on there. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard there's a big thing about Carey Mulligan in Maestro. I heard that that's a Oscar-worthy performance. Definitely, and then maybe I don't know if Lily Gladstone's still getting the push for Oscar nomination in Killers of the Flower Moon, but
lead?
for Best Actress, I think that there is a very good chance Emma Stone gets this one in the bag. While I don't think it's her best performance, maybe for myself, I think it's a really, really strong contender for the year. I think it's one of the most entertaining, one of the most engaging performances. And the best part is there is, unlike some other performances, a clear physical, orderable, mental evolution of the character. And that's really interesting to see, from the way that she speaks to the way that she acts to her intentions, her motives. They all evolve, and there is a clear beginning, middle, conflict, resolution, and at the end, a really good conclusion to her story. Mark Ruffalo, however, is he is an entertaining boy. He steals scenes, but he also complements Emma Stone to a T. There's a little dance sequence together. I was just gushing over the two. How it was like a perfect combination of her and then him and then him and then her and then them together. It was just, they complement each other. They really knew each other's characters, and that was super exciting to see. I know that if we're going to talk about Oscars, because that conversation is really going to start coming into the conversation as we get closer and closer to it. There is some really big hard hitters in supporting actor this year. I know that you're going to have Downey in there for Oppenheimer. You're going to have Gosling in there for Barbie. You're definitely going to have Ruffalo in there. Talking about Killers beforehand, De Niro's going to be in there.
De Niro,
possibly even Willem Dafoe. Because I honestly think that, for me, with the first screening, I'd love to see it again, but the first screening, Ruffalo took the limelight. But I think that Willem's performance is subtly just as good. A lot more internal conflict. He's a lot more of a closed-off man than what Mark Ruffalo's character is. And I'd love to dive back into that world and check it out again. Because I feel like Willem Dafoe, his God, the character, I love how they refer to him as God. It was super funny. Is a super interesting character. He has his own conflict. We said that. He has his own father issues. He has his own master issues, which was his father. He was broken apart and put back together. So I think that when it comes to Mark Ruffalo versus Emma Stone for Oscar nominations, Emma's almost got this one in the bag, where Mark has to really fight for it. There is going to be that's going to be a really hard category to figure out, because they're going to be pushing for Downey on Oppenheimer, and Gosling has got the whole TikTok community behind his back to win Best Supporting Actor. And you're really going to have the film bros and broskies of Letterboxd pushing Mark Ruffalo to get Best Supporting, because Poor Things is like the perfect movie for Letterboxd fans. That's like how I described it to somebody. I was like, do you have Letterboxd? They're like, no. And I was like, you're going to hate Poor Things. And then I described it to somebody else. I was like, do you have Letterboxd? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you're going to love Poor Things.
I have Charles Melton's here. Shout out to him. I think he's kind of slowly falling off
for
from
May,
the
December?
hype that people have had a week or two ago, because the movie has been kind of received by a wider Netflix audience as I expected, and like they can't really make sense of it. It's like, what is this? Why is it not condemning this outright? Like, why is it a complex character study? But yeah, another great performance. But I think I wouldn't be upset if Mark Ruffalo gets it. Any of the nominees here, even if Ryan Gosling were to get it, I wouldn't be upset. I think there's just been a ton of great original cinema with great performances, and I also have to give a shout out to the screenplay and this, like, as far as adapted screenplay goes for this, I think it's not like the strongest of the year from some of the other stuff that could be in that category, but it is a contender. I think it has like really smartly written scenes. They're definitely gonna play for a screenplay. That one scene where Rami Youssef and Emma Stone are like walking, and she talks about like being a whore, and are you not upset by that, and like the possessive natures that males have usually, or something like that. She says it's just like, oh yeah, it's. I'm gonna spoil here. I'm gonna go with something else, but like I feel like this movie would be a great pairing with Barbie, because on the one side it's like Barbie is like way more lighthearted in the way that it like outright addresses stuff, and this is also like very much in your face. It's also a bit more R-rated in the way that it depicts it, but it gets to go a bit more into the actual nuanced. A little bit more R-rated.
I mean, a little bit more.
But I think it's a nice pairing, because it gets to have like actual scenarios, and not just like, hey, don't we all notice in America Ferrera has like a 2-minute long speech about like the struggles of being a woman, you know? And that's also, it can be a cathartic moment, like something that I felt like it didn't add to the movie overall, but ultimately maybe it's a great collective moment outside of the film. It's nice to have that in pop culture, as popularly as it is, just like being said, because like it can't just feel like an outlet to get out there. But this feels way more like it's going into it gets to go into the nuances. It's not taking away that like Barbie is just bad now and you gotta prefer Poor Things over it. I feel like the discussion sometimes quickly, especially on the internet, becomes about like, okay, this thing is better, that's why this thing is bad. That's not how it works. It can all be additive, and it's just the different slices of different kinds of pie that you get to enjoy. The to be in theme with ho 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 here is like you get to have a whole sort of cookies instead of just like having the one. And overall, I feel nourished. This was definitely like a great pleasant surprise of the year. And early on, when we got the first trailer, before I got to see it in Venice, I was like, I'm probably not gonna vibe with this, because it felt so out there, so weird. And it didn't take long for me to be like completely engrossed into this world and not be like questioning the story that they were telling. I was like in pretty fast. I don't know, you said it took a bit for you to get in there, or?
Yeah, it definitely did. It wasn't until Mark Ruffalo came onto screen and they kind of ran away that I kind of really got engrossed into the world. I don't know. And again, it comes down to me thinking about it later, how I thought, no, I was meant to be uncomfortable. I wasn't supposed to be enjoying the world that Bella was in, and I should be uncomfortable like her, because she's closed off to the world. She's married off to this man. And even though Max has the best intentions with Bella, you know, he doesn't come from a place where they honestly met. It was, you know, come study this girl, and he fell in love with her. And I guess in this world that is love, but again, you don't feel comfortable in her situation, and that's okay. That is how you're meant to feel, because you're about to go on a journey with Bella to evolve. And as I said, she physically evolves, she mentally evolves, her dialogue becomes, her sentences become fuller, they become more clear, they're easier to understand. She sexually evolves, like everything about the character evolves, and I feel like the conversation hasn't been said about how sexual this movie is and how daunting that could be for a lot of audiences. But
go see it with your family.
Don't go see it with your family. But that's just going to be a conversation that's going to be had. Like that, the part of this character's evolution is that awakening. She is a woman in a not a current setting, like previous historic early 19th century 20th century setting. Women weren't in a place of power, and Bella forms her own world. She breaks a stereotype of that decade, and that is something that will make you uncomfortable at first, but you then follow her on that journey and you realize that she is her own woman and kicks ass. And you meet women along the way. There was that old lady on the
Catherine
boat
Hunter.
that also kicks ass.
Oh.
Yeah, like
the lady in the brothel, Swiney, who was Catherine Hunter.
She's great as well. she's
Yeah.
great as well. But yeah, no, the film itself is, as I said, if we're going to talk really quickly about things we don't enjoy, I do feel like there are moments that need to be expanded upon.
Let's talk about specifics. We haven't really talked about like specific spoilers yet, even though this is a spoiler review. Maybe we can give you a final spoiler warning if you haven't tuned out yet, and talk about like specific things that didn't work for you. Yeah,
I do feel it's funny that I praise that there's a lot of sex scenes in this, but I do feel like we could have cut a couple of those out just to have a little more moments with the setting. I think it was Alexandria, the setting where it's up on the hill, and then there's the poor people down below, and then there's a really interesting character moment with Bella wanting to give the poor everything. Right, we could really expand that moment a little bit more to have more out of that, because that's a really hard moment on her, and it's the first sort of realization of how bad the world could be, and it's kind of just, there are poor people, let's move on. And then it goes into the point about her stealing all the money that, what's his name, Duncan has won, and getting it away. Like that's the next plot point. But that moment is moved on too quickly. Like it's her being held in Harry's hands, and then the moment's moved on. And it's very similar to the second last scene with her husband, her actual husband of the body that was before it was reanimated. Yeah, that moment with him comes too quickly. Like there should have been something building up to that, other than just Duncan betraying her, finding the husband. There should be a moment other than just the, oh, hello, you're this person. No, I'm not this person. That was earlier in the film. There should have been another 2 or 3 moments like that. Maybe including the husband, just so it's not so much of a, here's the husband shock. And because that shock didn't really get me, because I didn't care who this person was. I didn't care that they had a story outside of this current one, because we haven't had a moment to care about that. So all of a sudden it's, here is this moment of a wedding, swept off her feet, taken home, husband, betrayal, yada, yada, yada. And that moment's done in like 15 minutes. And it just wasn't long enough. And whilst I think that the film is long, I don't mind if the film was longer, just to get rid of a couple sex scenes, have those two scenes filled out a little bit longer, and that be the film. I don't think the film is actually long. I just feel like there are moments that are overdone, and then there are moments that are too short that feel super important, especially for an emotional aspect to the character's development. And that was Bella's big reveal of the world being bad, and then Bella's reveal of the life that she had before she was reanimated by Godwin. And those are two very important elements to her story. She is the main character after all. They could have been expanded upon and hit heavier if we had more of it.
I feel like once they reveal that she has killed herself before, she threw herself off the bridge, and they basically just snacked up her body, I already get enough of an introduction to what Christopher Abbott and that relationship must have been like with Alfie. So I didn't really need that, and I really liked then just how short that moment at the dinner table. Well, it wasn't that short, but how filled with just tension it is. Because I'm genuinely just like, I want her to get out of there and not for her to, even though she has had all of this reinvigorated like new life that she was able to guide herself, she might just be trapped again by a man as easily as that, even though she has had all of that experience and different like worldview as well, and has learned stuff.
Okay.
Like that, I think that is really effective in the way that it's just like it's not as interested in like the previous story then.
So what if less of a scene extension for that last scene,
Yeah,
and more that it was brought to your attention in the background? Like, what if there was like a missing poster for her in London that your attention is brought to, indicating a life that was more important? Because you don't know that she comes from wealth and money, and then it's kind of like this very because Godwin isn't a very wealthy man, but he does live in a very quite a big house. And then it's this bigger house, but doesn't feel that much bigger and wealthier. And it feels like there's this sort of, because obviously she suffers from not having money for a large amount of the film. And now, boom, she's back into her marriage with there's actual money. It doesn't feel like there's that juxtaposition of having money, having no money, because we don't know that she comes from it until all of a sudden. I feel like just having her have like a missing person reward X million dollars or whatever would have been, or X thousands of dollars, whatever, would have gone, oh, okay, there's someone out there looking for her, or even someone handing out posters being like, have you seen my wife? Or maybe he doesn't even do that because because he's actually technically a piece of shit. But don't get me wrong. Alfie's a fucking piece of shit. And in the 20, 30 minutes we have him on screen, like, Christopher Abbott kills it because it makes me hate him straight away. Like, absolutely brilliant. And I think, again, the performances in this film are wicked, but I feel like for Bella's story, there could have just been a little bit more out of that moment.
I disagree, and I think that's like something interesting that you bring up here. If you I'm gonna elaborate on that, not just say that I disagree. But if you bring up the posters and like basically have a subplot narrative of her discovering something about herself, about a previous life, then it ultimately in a screenplay sense would lead up to a moment where she has to decide, does she want to go back to her life previously or not? But that's never even the question with this character, and I feel like that's why he doesn't need to bring any of that up before, because it's never at any point even she's questioning, should I go back to this guy, like, overall as a character, because she's completely different. She's not the same person. It's nurture, not nature. It's not like you fall into the nature of a woman who's like next to a man, but it's through the nurture that she's had, basically not having nurture and be just throwing out into the world and having a really naive mind and being open to even with her struggles with money. She's basically just like, oh yeah, I guess I gotta sell my body to get through, and it's not like she's not victimized through that. And I think that's also like a great approach to go here, that you could like really quickly go into that. And I don't think it's like trying to make a statement of like sex work is work, and that's already good, which I also second. But it's it's like all about her character ultimately, and I love how much it just everyone else is just kind of outside of her perception of her world, and we are living in Bella's world. And yeah, anything else we wanna talk about, or you wanna share your rating for the film? I think the film ends really quickly at the end there when they're all just in the garden.
But again, it's because that scene comes out of nowhere. Just saying. Just saying. It's, you don't have to agree with me,
that
but just saying.
At the end, I know. I didn't love the ending, although it is funny to see, what is he at the end, a goat or something?
A goat, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Look,
his mind is in
easiest way to explain this film is if you love dialogue that is ridiculous and delivered with the straightest face possible, you'll love it. Because there are moments that Bella just says the craziest shit and is just straight-faced, just saying, like, I murdered a pack of baby dogs or something like that. And it's just, you go, what? What's coming out of your mouth? Or you have Mark Ruffalo's character saying the most elaborate sentence that spans over paragraphs that could be summarized in just, I love you. Like, he is over explaining. It's like he has a thesaurus and he just goes through words and just goes, how should I say the basic shit but overcomplicate it? But he says it with the straightest face. And that's a lot of these characters. They say the most ridiculous. And it's the same with any Yorgos Lanthimos movie. It's like, those are his characteristics to his films. And if you didn't expect that going in, and if this is your first film of his, then you're in for a ride, because I think that this film shouldn't be your first of his, because it might make you feel a bit alienated. You should definitely go watch his other films, which great example would be The Lobster, where it also tackles some really interesting love conversations and themes and addresses them quite well, but it's not so in your face about set design and costumes and hairstyling. It is a lot simpler with that visual style, but the narrative is a lot stronger, and it also has incredible performances from Colin Farrell. Similarly, in this film, he discovered maybe the love of production design from The Favourite, and has gone, I would love more fancy outfits with my dialogue, and I'd love for just colourful Tim Burton-esque LSD, The Beatles, set design world, and a little touch of David Lynch. That's all I'm saying. Just a little sprinkle of just weird, funky designs of David Lynch, and surrealist is another great way of describing the world. It's very surrealist, like what's his name? Salvador Dali. Is his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that artist Dali, that makes some really like surrealist imagery. That is this film.
Yep.
And it's a lot to throw at you. So you should kind of do your edibles, wait 12 hours for that high to be over, then watch this movie, because you will have a trip.
I mean, shout out to the production designer here, James Price. Who hasn't worked on The Favourite, but he has worked on The Iron Claw, I see. And The Nest, he only has like 4 credits. Yeah, I'm surprised here. Just great work. It's definitely like a collective effort. I assume there's like a bunch of other people who are involved. So let's just say, with Waddington for costume design. Yeah.
I'm sure it's head to head with Barbie. Like it's literally a coin toss between Barbie and Poor Things, because there are elements that Barbie nails, and there are elements that Poor Things just absolutely kill it. And it's really going to be who like campaigns harder, because there's going to be a lot of campaigning for Barbie, I reckon. I don't know how much campaigning is going to happen for Poor Things. I know that there's some Oscar runs in the past that he's gotten, but production design is a really strong one.
Let me put it like this, to kind of convey the levels of production design, in my opinion. It's Barbie Land, but this is Bella's world, you know? If that makes sense. It's one part of it.
Yes.
The real life isn't as exciting. This one is the whole time through. Incredible production design. But both would deserve it. Again, at the end of the day, it's just an award. Who the fuck cares? Go see both films. But I'm at a 4.5 out of 5 for this one, as far as ratings go. Again, haven't had a chance to rewatch it since August. Looking forward to it when it comes out here in Switzerland, so I'll give it another try. But yeah, what about you, Lachlan?
I'm giving it 4.5.
Ooh, okay. Damn.
That's a high score, isn't it?
That is a very high score. We have to go back maybe for remind me to, I guess, check if what a highest collective score was of the year. But a 9 out of 10 from the two of us is very good. Is very good.
Very
But yeah,
high.
that's that. Very high. That's what you, like you said, shouldn't be to watch this film. Otherwise, like you'll have a bad trip. Imagine this on acid would be horrible. Anyways, if you were to pair it up with another film to make a double feature, Lachlan, what would you go with?
I didn't think of one, and I remember just before we hit record, you were like, "Hey, you should think of
Remember
a movie
this time?
that
What about
that you should say yours, so I can do the same thing
Yeah.
I do every week and quickly Google a whole bunch of fucking movies and then go, yes, that one."
I remember the category that we have in Jeopardy about like 2 movies, 1 title or something like that. My first thing was,
Yes.
okay, what you could go like poor 10 things I hate about you, or poor where the wild things are, or what else is there with poor the thing. No, I'm going
The Thing.
we
Really.
me initially were going to talk about this movie next week and talk about Rebel Moon today, but it's a long film. They just premiered it now, and we couldn't fit it in. We'll talk about it next week.
Literally 6 hours ago, it came out.
Yeah, for me it was 4 a.m. and I was like, sure as hell not getting up to go see Zack Snyder. But I tweeted last night that like I'll watch it in 2x speed, so it's the real time cut. Because I assume there's gonna be a lot of slow motion. So my pick was Star Wars, the Star Wars Christmas special, because it's his rejected Star Wars idea. Get it? And it's fucking Christmas. But I'm gonna go just with Barbie as my like actual pick. I think
Okay.
it's a great double feature. Poor Things and Barbie.
We talked a lot about set design with this one, and we talked about the evolution of a character, and the movie is about poor things. It makes you feel sad about this particular character's situation, and I think there's another film that has incredible set design and makes you go, oh, I feel bad for this character's situation. It is Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water, 2017.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic movie to double feature this with because it shares a lot of similar elements. I think they're very different films, but I think they honestly would pair very well with each other.
We didn't even talk about that this was shot on 35mm, by the way. It looks stunning.
It was shot on 35mm? No way. No way, I don't believe you.